First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, let's kick it off with another edition right here on the Eternal Insiders Podcast with myself. My name is Luke, and as always, I'm your host. But none of that matters because look who's joining me on the show here for the very first time. It's the man at the top of the pile, the man that runs things around here, the man that puts the Eternal cards together. He needs no introduction, but it's Cam O'Neill. He's here on the show for the very first time. I must say it's about time, Cam. So thank you for joining us here. Thanks for your time.
No, thanks. Look, it's been fun watching the podcast grow, and I'm glad I'm getting on it.
No, it's been a good thing. I'm having fun doing it myself. So I think we've always sort of talked. I think Ben said that it's about time you get on here. A few other people have said it's about time Cam gets on here. I think people enjoy seeing you when you do the pod. So it's cool to have you around.
Well, hopefully I'll get some interesting information to share. So
we do have some very interesting information to share. Of course, none bigger than, we've got a couple of things to talk about, but nothing bigger, of course, than Eternal 78. Coming up on September 8th, making its debut for Eternal MMA in Sydney is the huge one with an absolutely stacked card. In your words to me, one of the biggest cards, if not the biggest card that has been put together, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But first up, we do want to talk about this weekend coming up, July 30th. We've got the King's Cup making its return for the King's Cup Pro Invitational. King's Cup, of course, with a submission grappling event. You can talk a little bit about this coming up, and I want to talk a bit about the card. But just for anyone that sort of doesn't know, anyone watching this video, can you talk a little bit about the King's Cup, sort of the inception of what it is, what it sort of wants to be, the vision for it, unique rule set from what I understand. What can you tell us about that?
Thanks, Luke. King's Cup's obviously top of mind. It's coming up this Sunday. It's our first invitational version of the King's Cup. When we set up King's Cup, we were setting up as a tier 2 grappling event or grappling organisation where we would do register, rock up and compete style events on mats multiple times round about the country, and we'd do 3 or 4 full broadcast spec invitationals, all pro with high production values 3 or 4 times a year, and that's what's coming up this weekend in Southport Sharks and the Gold Coast. It's the first one we've done. It's the full Eternal team that's behind the production and behind the content creation for it. And Casey's driving everything to do with the rule set and how she wants to develop the brand.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing and garnering a lot of interest. And I mean, as far as this being an invitational event, some really big names in there. I mean, of course, we got Phil Hawes, UFC fighter. He's headlining the card himself. But I mean, a lot of names that Eternal MMA fans or Australian MMA fans would be very familiar with as well. Ben Wynn's coming in there, former UFC fighter. He's taking on Tim Moore, former Eternal champion. The returning Jack Beck is there. Rod Costa's going to be there. Massive list of names. We've got some female grapplers on the card. So it's sort of stacked top to bottom. Shed a bit of light on those grapplers that we're going to see there, because it's pretty cool on paper to see some of these names going to be showing up.
It is. It's really cool. And I think the whole thing when we were doing the concept behind how we wanted the invitational to look, you know, we're all in the industry, you know, we're all round about gyms and we're all speaking to people every single day. And one common gripe that grapplers had, that they didn't have access to the same sort of competition and the same sort of platform as what high-level amateur and pro MMA fighters in Australia had. So we thought that we could put together a company that would be able to satisfy the regional rock up, register and compete, but also feed the top end guys that are competing in the mat-based competitions into the invitational and showcase them to the world through a broadcast partnership with UFC Fight Pass. UFC Fight Pass are obviously heavily behind grappling at the moment. It's the hot topic on their platform just now, you know, as they're pushing the King's Cup Invitational, and, you know, they're grabbing a few other events. Fury Grappling is on there regular as well. And there is that athlete association between MMA and grappling-based sports. And a lot of these MMA athletes, whether it be at the Australian national level or at the world level with the UFC, are looking to compete in between fights. on a competitive grappling platform where, you know, the rules do protect them. And keep it interesting.
No, it's very cool. And I mean, this off the back of, we had the King's Cup Open back in April, I think it was. So, you know, anyone that sort of wanted to sign up could come participate there. I believe it was at the Fitness Expo in Sydney, if I was correct. Like, what was that sort of like kicking that off? What was the sort of the success and the intention around that event?
The intention round about that event, we had the opportunity to work with Oz Fitness Expo pre-COVID with Eternal. And obviously COVID put a halt in that pretty swiftly. And this was the Oz Fitness Expo's first year back in operation. And we felt that the grappling was a better fit for their daytime event. And we wanted to kick off our tournament style, register, rock up and compete. We wanted to get people to come out and experience the rule set. We wanted to get our staff familiar with running the event. And we wanted to get King's Cup visible to as many people as possible, especially the live grappling part of it. And with 30,000 people a day coming through the Australian Fitness Expo, it was a fantastic place to kick it off. Luckily enough, where our mats were positioned as well was right next to where Israel Adesanya was doing a signing and where Volk was doing a signing as well. So for 3 or 4 hours when people were queued up to get signatures and autographs off of they guys, they got to watch the King's Cup tournament. So it was pretty fun. I'd been skeptical about how much I would enjoy it. You know, I enjoy putting these events together and the outcome, etc. But I just didn't know, you know, how much I would enjoy a grappling tournament where it was going to be hands-on all day. And it was so much fun. It really was. And everyone had a great time. We collected some fantastic content and got some great data. And a lot of people got introduced to King's Cup as well. So all in all, it was a big win.
No, a big win indeed, of course, co-founded by King Casey O'Neill. So, like, what's she sort of thinking about the process? Of course, I mean, you're going to sort of speak on her behalf, but, you know, she's sort of seeing it from afar, obviously living and training in Las Vegas in the US, but how's her thoughts sort of been on that brainchild so far with King's Cup?
Yeah, Casey's fully hands-on with King's Cup. She actually, I don't know if you noticed, she flew over for the King's Cup tournament. She actually arrived on the Friday morning, get straight off the flight from Vegas, dropped off her case, left the hotel, come straight to the event, and spent the full day on the mats, talking with competitors, running the scorecards, doing the timing, weighing people in, and being fully hands-on for the full weekend. And she was there till the Monday. She loved it. Now, she's in fight camp for UFC293 at the moment in Vegas, so she's not going to be coming over for the King's Cup Invitational this weekend. But the rule set and the way that the show is going to look has been laid out by Casey, as well as hands-on with the matchmaking as well, especially the top end of the card. She wanted to make sure that everybody had a good mix of local talent as well as some interstate and some international. And we managed to get that. You know, we've got some fantastic people out of Queensland, fantastic people out of New South Wales, and obviously we've got Phil Hawes, current UFC middleweight, at the top of the card against Sydney West's Curtis Martin. But Eternal fans will recognise the Ben Royal name on that card as well. You know, Ben Royal, former Eternal featherweight, pre-COVID, yet again, pre-COVID, he was a former Eternal featherweight, but he's now set up his own grappling gym in Phuket in Thailand, and we're really excited to have him involved as well.
A lot of cool names. I mean, a couple other names that Eternal MMA fans be familiar with. Just myself, me and Taser Malone on there as well, who's becoming a bit of an Eternal MMA regular. So top to bottom, massive card. Anyone wanting to see that one, tickets are available at kcgrappling.com. And as always, if you're not there to see the event, you can check it out live and exclusive on UFC Fight Pass. So make sure you check that one out. Like Cam O'Neill said, grappling is the hot topic at the moment, and KC Grappling is sort of leading the way on that front for Australia. So make sure you get involved with that one any way you can. It's going to be a big event. Of course, Casey O'Neill, as you said, she's fighting herself. Got the official confirmation today on UFC Instagram that she will be appearing at UFC 293 against Viviane Araujo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So very cool to have Casey O'Neill fighting in the UFC back home for the first time. She's always wanted to do that. She wants to fight in Scotland. She wants to fight in America, but she wants to fight home here in Australia. So very cool to have her over. I'm assuming you're going to be there in her corner.
Well, I'm going to be in Sydney. I don't really know what she's going to pick for her corner this time. We'll wait and see how she goes. But look, it's so exciting to have her have her coming back again. Obviously, she was back in March in the UK after a 9-month hiatus with the ACL injury. Very few people manage to return to not only full competitive action, but to fight somebody in the top 10 coming back from a surgery like that within 9 months. But now she's got that fight under her belt now. You know, it wasn't the result we were looking for, but I think Casey Love grew as a person and as a fighter coming off the back of that. You know, that weighs heavily around a lot of people's necks, you know, when they're undefeated, and you're always a target. But now she's getting rid of that and she's injury free, and let's go for it.
Let's go for it, indeed. I was going to say, do you maybe think that, you know, just once maybe you'd like to sort of be able to sit in the stands and watch her from the sidelines? Because I think last time we saw you in the corner, you looked stressed, man, like when you were sort of coming out there, of course, you know, being the father and everything. But I mean, I was looking at you live on TV and the look you had on your face, I'm like, man, this guy's feeling all the emotions right now, like ready to go. You just had that worried look on your face. So maybe you want to sit back and just sort of enjoy it as a fan for this one, perhaps?
I'm not sure.
If you could.
I sat in the crowd at UFC in Perth earlier on this year. You know, it was a good seat in the crowd, but I sat in the crowd, and I don't know if I enjoy sitting in the crowds anymore. I really don't. I don't know if it's just because I'm 50 and I'm a grumpy old man now, but yeah, I get too anxious and too emotional, and you know, it's hard for me to sit there and watch any fighter that I'm invested with, you know, at any level, you know, whether success or failure does affect me emotionally. You know, I'm not, you know, because I do want to see them all do so well and you know, chase their dreams. Obviously, my daughter's going to be that times 1,000. So I don't know. I really don't know.
No, I get that, but we damn well know that King Casey can look after herself, so we can't wait to see her there for UFC 293. But of course, the big one the night before and the big topic for Eternal MMA is Eternal MMA making its debut in Sydney on September 8th for that absolutely massive card headlined by Matt Myers versus Brogan Anderson for the middleweight title. We've also got Joseph Luciano taking on Matt Vale out of New Zealand. Very heavy New Zealand themed card around the top there, as it just so happens, but absolutely huge event. From what you would probably tell us, there's probably still a couple of fights to be made for that one. But one of the biggest fight cards we've ever had for Eternal MMA, if not the biggest. Huge event at the, whereabouts is the event again that we're holding? Obviously, it's in the Moore Park Entertainment Quarter at the venue that it's at. But you can talk a little bit more about that. How did this event come together? What was sort of the logistics of putting this together on the eve of UFC 293? Huge event. Can't wait for it.
Well, we're actually the Friday night. So we're Friday, September 8th. We're
the Friday night, my apologies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now that's you know, that's just something that happened with how quickly this event was put together. We obviously work pretty closely with the UFC when they work in this region. You know, we get heads up pretty early about the potential dates, the potential cities that they're looking at hosting events in, and this one just came a little bit quicker than previous ones, so we didn't have a lot of time to secure a venue. And a couple of the venues that we had already earmarked for a Sydney, for a first Sydney show, weren't available on that date. So we looked about, we wanted to stay central to Sydney and we wanted to be in a nice venue. And we ended up with Liberty Hall in Moore Park, which looks like a fantastic venue. It's mainly a live music venue, also does a bit of wrestling. They do some
I did see that.
I think it's AEW wrestling that's in there. And it just looks fantastic. You know, it's got a mezzanine that wraps round about it that's slightly tiered. You know, it's all standing when you're inside. So I think it'll have that kind of Thunderdome niche, well, you know, with a oppressive atmosphere with people all round about the cage, which with the fights that we've got matched on that card should be just, you know, it should just be an electric night. It really should be.
No, I mean, you know, hearing about that venue, there's nothing like being on sort of like right on top of the action. So if everyone's going to be on top of the action just by the way the venue is, I mean, everyone wins, right? So, I mean, tickets, like, you know, as far as around the cage and everything, they sold out so quick. I mean, I think you just told me before, there is still tickets available for general standing. So make sure you get in for those, get your tickets and secure them, especially if you're going to be there in Sydney for the UFC. Talk a little bit about those fights. So, of course, like we said before, headlined by Matt Myers. He's defending his middleweight championship for the very first time against Brogan Anderson. He's making his debut from Eternal MMA, coming over from New Zealand out of City Kickboxing. I mean, that's a hell of a matchup in itself. What can you tell us about that one being put together?
Yeah, look, anytime we go the same weekend as the UFC, we try and outdo our last card, and we've always had good cards, and they've just been getting better and better. And this one is, in my opinion, it's probably the most exciting card that I can remember putting together. The 2 title fights at the top of the card. We've got Matt Myers making his first defence, and Brogan Anderson as well, who we've had our eye on for a while, and we've tried to do some business with Brogan Anderson previously, but 1 or 2 things haven't lined up, and we've never managed to get him on a card. And what better time than September the 8th? It's going to be a fitting main event. And then underneath that, we've got Joey Luciano, of course, the eternal welterweight champion, looking to make his defence as well. Now, we originally had Alden Bates scheduled to be the number 1 contender for that fight, but he's got some family commitments in the UK just before that wouldn't have allowed him to prepare properly for it. So Alden's available in October, and what we're going to do is the winner of Joey Luciano and Matt Vale, as long as they're fit and healthy and able to turn around, we'd be looking to have them defend in October against Alden Bates in Perth. But Matt Vale's another one. He's a stalwart in recent years of the Australian and New Zealand MMA scene, but he's just never been on Eternal. We've just never managed to put a fight together or to get him on board, and we've managed to do it for this show, so it's exciting. It really is exciting to have both the boys involved, and potentially, Eternal champions after one fight, if that is the case. But I'm sure Joey and I'm sure Matt have got very different ideas about the outcome of the fight. It's going to be great. It's going to be exciting. And underneath that, the rest of the card from top to bottom is just, it's fantastic. Ethan Thomas and Rod Costa promises a grappler's delight. David Martinez and Jack Becker, that fight, they could either stand and slug it out and it could be fantastic to watch, or yet again it could hit the deck and it'll be a grappler's delight. I think both the boys are very evenly matched, and it's a fight that we've all known is going to happen at some time, and what better time than to do it in Sydney, in the UFC 293 weekend. The fun thing there is similar to the welterweight title fight, is Jack Becker and David Martinez are fighting for the number 1 contender spot in the lightweight division. So Quillen's sitting at the top of the ranks just now, the belt tightly tucked under his pillow at night, and he can sit and watch the fight and await the outcome to see who he'll be facing in October in Perth as well. So you're probably gathering October in Perth's going to be a pretty fun card as well.
I mean, when is it not a fun card over in Perth? I mean, just huge events. The fans over there in Perth absolutely blow everyone's mind every time every time Eternal puts on a show over there. So lots to look forward to there. Of course, big stat card for Eternal 78. I think from what we can tell, there's still another couple of fights that have got to be announced. Is there any other news on that for now? Are we still waiting to see what sort of comes together? I know it's out there at the moment that Josh Kuhn's hoping to get on the card. I mean, if we could get the cherry on top of the cake as far as, already having a couple of great title fights. I mean, Josh Kuhn's such a fan favorite, man about town, just jack of all trades. Getting Josh Kuhn on that card would be something special.
Well, I think everybody's been waiting to see either Josh or Dimps since their Fight of the Year performance last year, coming back. And Josh is coming back at Sydney. I'll announce it just now. So Josh is coming back at Sydney. We've got him matched. He'll be getting added. He's added to the card, but we're just waiting on the artwork getting done. So Josh will be facing James McBride from New Zealand on that card. So another exciting addition.
Man,
another reason to go to Sydney. I mean, when you look down that card at some of the boys that are on it, we've got Brando, DJ, Sean Etchell, Alan Philpott, Josh Kuhn, Jack Becker, Ethan Thomas, Rod Costa, Joey Luciano, Matt Myers, some of the most exciting people we've had on Eternal cards in recent time. Chris Ustajanowski coming out of Lions Den as well looked fantastic. It's just a mad card. It really is.
It's an absolute mad card. I mean, depending on how you stack it, I mean, you look at those first 5 the first 5 fights, my apologies, that are currently on that main card. I mean, if Josh Kuhn's coming in there, I mean, is that a matter of someone's got to come off that main card down to the prelims? Like, is there any thoughts about how you'd sort of slot him in? Would anything have to change with him coming in?
We're still a few weeks out. We've got the card together in a tentative order just now. Other than the 2 title fights, every other one of their fights, most of their fights, apart from the two debuts and Chris and Daniel, who are obviously not just as experienced, but every single other fight in that card is main card worthy. I think from top to bottom, it's I think from top to bottom, it's just a main card and a pro and a even more main card after it. We will probably do a broadcast deal for the undercard as well. I fully expect that we might put that through UFC Fight Pass as well. Might put both parts through Fight Pass. I mean, that's how good the fights are. The boys deserve to be on that platform.
Have we had that before? Not to my knowledge. Have we had prelims on UFC Fight Pass? Is this the first time?
No, we haven't. This would be the first time, and I don't think it would be an issue. I will need to, we will need to have the discussions. I don't think, we're quite happy, for these guys to get the exposure and such a big weekend for Australian MMA.
Huge weekend for Australian MMA. That one on September 8th. Friday, September 8th. I've probably been spouting off that it's Saturday, but don't quote me. It's on Friday, September 8th, so make sure you're getting into that one. UFC Fight Pass if you're not attending. Of course, if you do want to attend, tickets still available. You can get those at eternalmma.com. You do not want to miss this one. Eternal MMA making its debut in Sydney. Going to be an absolutely huge weekend. I'm going to be there. We're all going to be there. We can't wait to check it out. Got a couple more cards after that as well. We briefly touched on. We got Eternal 79, of course, coming up. On the Gold Coast, we got Eternal 80, which will be back over at the HBF Stadium, I'm assuming, in Perth. A couple of fights that have already sort of been made for that one. Of course, we already know it's already out there in the public. Anthony Drillich versus Frank Jankowski, facing off for former Eternal flyweight champion Stephen Urseg's belt. They'll be competing for that one. But anything else you can tell us surrounding those cards coming up after Eternal 78, 479 and 80?
Well, with just jumping 79 just now and going straight to 80, we do have the vacant title there. At the moment, it's sitting top of the card, but depending on outcomes in Sydney, we might even have 3 title fights in that card. We might end up having a welterweight title, a lightweight title, and the vacant flyweight title on that card. The rest of that card is shaping up as well. We do have what I would imagine will be one of the most fun fights of the year on that card. We'll probably release that this weekend when all the paperwork's finished with it. But that card's looking fantastic. It really is. Every card, it's such a good thing about Eternal. When I was talking about that Eternal 78 card, it's the storylines. It's not just a fight. These fights actually mean something in the hierarchy. We're waiting and outcomes happening, and there's fighters waiting and outcomes happening. So is that they know who they're up next against, who's the next cab off the ranks. And it's, it just puts a little bit more into it. You know what I mean? You just feel a little bit more invested or a little bit more excited about the outcome. That creates some good storylines.
It does. And I mean, the great thing about Eternal MMA as well is, we're just consistently putting on events. Like, it seems sort of almost every month. Like, what are we sort of on track for in terms of this year? Like, how many events has Eternal actually done in terms of a record year? Are we on track to have the most events this year? I mean, we're putting on more events than anyone else. It's a great time for Eternal MMA. Great time for Australian MMA fans to sink their teeth into the next generation. So many cards going on.
Yeah, in terms of Eternal events, the strongest strength of schedule we've kept so far is 10 events in 12 calendar months. That's the most that we've done in terms of Eternals. And the shortest time frame that we've ever done events was just right pre-COVID. I think it was February 2020. We'd done 3 events in 14 days, and they 3 events were Perth, Auckland, and Gold Coast in 14 days. That was pretty impressive. But yeah, we do have a strong strength of schedule. We'll be keeping to 10 events per calendar month moving forward. We keep that schedule. We'll be adding in a minimum of 2 King's Cup invitationals. We'll be adding in a minimum of 4 King's Cup tournaments, and we've got Proving Grounds coming back as well. Of course, Proving Grounds is Robin, my daughter's show, but obviously it's the team from Eternal that do the production behind it. Robin does all the matching, does all the business. We do the production and put the show together, but we've got Proving Grounds coming back in December as well, and they'll have a regular series of amateur events in Gold Coast and Perth in 2024.
Very cool. I was actually just wondering about this the other day about Proving Grounds. Haven't seen that around for a while, but you're right. Absolutely, of course. Robin O'Neill, that's her brainchild there. So very cool. Amateur fighters being on that one. But coming back in December, you said?
Yeah, coming back in December. She's actually done a deal with Alta, which is the new name for Wimp to Warrior when that company was sold. I think they rebranded as Alta.
Oh, cool.
She's actually done a deal with Alta that through certain programs that they're running, that a couple of the fights will be made on Proving Grounds events. So first one of that's kicking off in December, so she'll be matching the top end of the card, and we'll be having an Alta main card as well.
The O'Neill stable just doing big things. I mean, yourself, like obviously running Eternal MMA, but I mean, Casey doing big things for the King's Cup. Robin, a little mini matchmaker in her own right doing Proving Grounds. I mean, it's just, it's so cool to see what you guys are doing. I mean, because it is Robin, she does all the matchmaking herself for those events, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's done, I've done very little with Proving Grounds admin-wise. The only thing I've done is a little bit of heavy lifting when we were putting the cage up and running the event that night.
The physical stuff.
I was one of the backstage runners for that night. But she does everything right from picking all the tracks on the background music to approving the artwork to everything like that. So that's Robin.
Super impressive. Like, is this something like, does she know what she kind of wants to do with this sort of thing long term? Does she want to follow in your footsteps, as far as the promotion game goes? Like, she's still figuring it all out. I know she trains as well. She wants to get herself up. She's of course forward as well. But what's her sort of long term vision for this sort of stuff with Proving Grounds and beyond?
I think Robin's firmly focused on her fighting career. She'll be coming back in September as well. She's on that September 70 Eternal 79 card.
Yep.
So she's firmly focused on training and her own fighting career. She's got goals that she wants to achieve with that, but she also realises that she needs to fund her training somehow as well. And what she does, and with the network that she's got, she's able to do that from anywhere in the country or internationally. So she's quite lucky in that regard. And it's no different from probably any other family that grows up with family business that the kids are hands-on, and especially, my kids spent a lot of time with me after I'd separated from their mother, so they were hanging about at my house more often, and obviously I was just growing Eternal, and I was still training and everything myself, and it's just what the kids seen every single day. So it's only natural that they progress into that. I don't think it's any special. I think it would have been the same if we had a butchers, a bakers, or a candlestick makers. It's just pretty cool, and I'm thankful that it's something a little bit more fun than butchery.
No, it just so happens we're in the fight business. I remember Casey telling me they're taking tickets at the door for Eternal events and that sort of thing as well. So it's bound to happen. We're holding it down on all fronts for Australia. Eternal MMA, King's Cup, submission grappling for Casey, Proving Grounds. Very cool things going on. But just back on the King's Cup as well, I believe there was something coming up in September that hasn't been sort of talked about yet. I think you might have mentioned that for King's Cup. There is another event happening in September as well. There
is. We're kicking off our first Queensland regional tournament. So we're going to do a King's Cup tournament in Mount Gravatt in Brisbane. So that'll be on Smooth Comp as an event this week. So later on this week, people will be able to register. That again will follow the same format as what we done in Sydney. And the format that we're doing across them all, our idea is that it's all no-gi. It's all no-gi. The tournament matches are 6 minutes long, 5 minutes submission only. The last minute are points, no overtime, no positional starts. You either win or you don't. Simple as that. And you can win by submission or points. And round robin in the tournaments, very accessible. We're doing a one price point, all divisions. One of the main gripes that we hear about jiu-jitsu and grappling tournaments and competitions is that they very rarely run in time and they're extremely expensive. You're looking at $100, sometimes more per division. And we're doing one price. We're doing $80 for as many divisions as you want to enter. And it's a round robin with a minimum of 3 matches. So everybody gets their money's worth. I think that the sport can only grow if we make it as accessible as possible to people to compete. There's nothing more fun than competition.
Nothing more fun than competition, indeed. And as you shared on social media the other day, this thing can be as big as the people want to make it. So for any of these events, sign up. I mean, tune in for UFC Fight Pass, of course, for that pro invitation we got coming up this weekend. A lot of cool things happening. I think that pretty much about wraps it. So don't forget what we got coming up. Eternal 78's the big one, September 8th, Friday in Sydney, making the debut at the Liberty Hall there. So make sure you get your tickets and make sure you tune in for UFC Fight Pass. King's Cup Pro Invitational this Sunday, July 30th. make sure you get your tickets at KC Grappling, or again, tune in at UFC Fight Pass to catch that one as well. So, and can make sure you keep your eye out for more fight announcements coming up for the future cards. Cam, first time on the show, man. Thank you very much for coming in and dropping some knowledge on us, promoting these events as you do, and looking forward to having you back on again to promote some more events in the future.
Awesome. No, it was great to be on. Look, thanks for that. It's been a long day, and it was good just to sit down and mumble for a while.
Of course, that's pretty much what I do here on YouTube too. So we can do it together, and we'll do it again sometime soon.
Great, good stuff. I probably prefer watching you and Daryl. That's the most fun we get.
We're going to get Daryl back. We'll be doing some fight card breakdown. So it's been fun with Daryl. He'll be on there for no doubt. We'll do Eternal 78. We'll talk about those fights and everything in the future. So look out for those ones. Thank you again, Cam.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, man.